Salve, dear traveller. My name is Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus. History knows me as Pompey the Great. I find it necessary to reveal myself to you, not as the statue of marble that time has cast me into, but as the flesh and blood, the fallible man that lived, loved, fought, and fell. Let me guide you through the corridors of my life, for it is a tale of grandeur and folly, triumph and tragedy, a life marked by power and its price. I was born on September 29th, 106 BC, in the heart of Rome, into a world of shifting power and constant conflict. My father, Gnaeus Pompeius Strabo, was a man of ambition and stern resolve, a novus homo who rose to the rank of consul through sheer will. He instilled in me the discipline of the Roman legions, the cunning of the political arena, and the drive to carve my name into the annals of history. My mother, on the other hand, was a quieter influence. Her whispers of the God's will and the fortune of our family guided me in moments of doubt. I was not born into a world of certainty. Rome in my youth was a beast with many heads, each pulling in its own direction. The Republic was both glorious and fractured, and it was within this cauldron that I was forged. My education was steeped in the classical virtues of Rome, rhetoric and philosophy, yet it was the sword and the art of war that truly captured my heart. I longed not just to serve Rome, but to command it, to shape its destiny as my father had begun to do. But my childhood was not merely a tale of preparation. It was filled with the laughter of friends and the simple joys of a boyhood spent in the streets of Rome, where every shadow held a lesson and every corner a mystery. Yet, even in those early years, the shadows of ambition loomed large. I knew that my life would be no ordinary one. Rome had plans for me, and I would either rise to meet them or be crushed beneath their weight. It is here, in these early days, that the seeds of my rise were sown. The gods favored me with a keen mind and a strong arm, but they also cursed me with a relentless ambition that would both elevate and destroy me. My life would be a relentless pursuit of greatness, marked by alliances and betrayals, victories and defeats, friendships and enmities. And so, as I take you through this journey, remember that the tale of Pompey the Great is not just one of conquest, but also one of the soul that sought to be the first among men, but would find, in the end, that such heights come at the greatest cost. Stay with me, for in the next part of this tale, you will see how a boy born in the streets of Rome would rise to become a member of the first Triumvirate, how my son Sextus Pompeius Magnus Pius would bring me both pride and sorrow, and how the bonds I forged would one day lead to my downfall. The tides of power are fickle, often raising men to their peaks, only to dash them against the rocks below. My ascent was swift, though not without struggle, and by the time I had reached the age of maturity, I had already begun to carve out my place in Rome's turbulent political landscape. But no man rises alone in Rome. It is through alliances, both firm and fragile, that one secures his future. It was this delicate dance of power that led me to the formation of the first Triumvirate, a union that would shape the fate of the Republic and seal my destiny. In those early years, I made my name as a soldier and commander, earning the title of Magnus from the legions I led to victory. The people adored me. They saw in me the image of Rome's ancient heroes, the likes of Scipio Africanus and Fabius Maximus. But fame and military prowess were only the beginning. Rome was a city ruled as much by the Senate's decrees as by the whispers of its allies, and I learned quickly that true power lay not in the sword alone, but in the Senate's chambers, where men's fates were decided with words as sharp as any blade. My first significant step into the political arena was my alliance with Julius Caesar and Marcus Licinius Crassus. This unlikely coalition was born out of necessity. Caesar was a rising star with boundless ambition, but little in the way of military achievement. Crassus was the wealthiest man in Rome, his riches equaled only by his hunger for power. And I had the military might and the adoration of the people. Together, we were a force that could not be ignored. a triumvirate of Rome's most powerful men, each seeking to use the others to secure his place in history. Yet, even in the early days of this alliance, I could feel the weight of what we had created. My son, Sextus Pompeius Magnus Pius, was still young, but already I dreamed of the legacy I would pass on to him, a legacy of power, influence, and the respect of Rome. I took great pride in his early accomplishments, seeing in him the potential to continue the Pompeian line, to one day command legions as I had. But I knew that the road ahead was fraught with peril. Caesar's ambition was boundless, and Crassus's greed was insatiable. How long, I wondered, could our alliance hold before it tore itself apart? We divided the spoils of Rome among ourselves. Caesar took Gaul, Crassus sought glory in the east, and I, ever the son of Rome, kept my influence close to the city itself. For a time, it seemed that our alliance would bring stability to Rome, that together we could rule with an iron hand and a silver tongue. But the seeds of discord were already sown. Each of us believed that we could outmaneuver the others, that in the end, Rome would belong to one alone. As I reflect on these days, I see now the folly of my ambition, the hubris that blinded me to the truth. We were not friends but rivals, each with our own designs on Rome's future. Caesar's victories in Gaul only heightened his hunger for more, and Crassus's ill-fated campaign in Parthia would leave a void that I alone could not fill. And my son, my dear Sextus, he would grow to witness the unraveling of all we had built, his own path marked by the shadows of my choices. The days of the Triumvirate would come to an end, but not before it had set the stage for the greatest conflict of my life, the clash with Caesar that would decide the fate of Rome itself. But that is a story for another time, a tale of betrayal, of battles fought and lost, and of a friendship that would turn to ashes. In the next part, we will delve into my reign, the delicate balance I tried to maintain with Caesar and Crassus, and the fateful decisions that would lead to my undoing. The stage is set, the players are in motion, and the fall of Pompey the Great is but a breath away. The wheels of fate often turn in ways we least expect, as Fortuna would attest, and for a time they turned in my favor. As one of the three rulers of Rome, I enjoyed the heights of power, yet the higher one ascends, the more precarious the perch. My alliance with Caesar and Crassus, born out of mutual ambition, quickly became a source of tension, suspicion, and ultimately betrayal. The bonds that once united us frayed, and I began to realize that the true enemy was not across the seas, but within the walls of Rome itself. Rome in those years was a city of both splendor and strife, and I stood at its center. My command over the armies and my influence in the Senate made me one of the most powerful men in the Republic. But power, as I soon discovered, is a fickle mistress. It draws envy, breeds rivalry, and inevitably demands a price. I found myself increasingly at odds with Caesar, whose ambitions were as boundless as his cunning. His successes in Gaul, those endless victories that seemed to make the gods themselves tremble, only served to elevate him in the eyes of the people, while casting a long shadow over my own achievements. Crassus, whose wealth had once been our greatest asset, met a tragic end in the east, his dreams of glory crushed by the Parthians. With his death, the Triumvirate lost its balance, and the fragile peace we had maintained began to unravel. The rivalry between Caesar and me, once tempered by Crassus's presence, now threatened to ignite into open conflict. I could sense it in every Senate meeting, in the whispers that followed me through the streets, in the letters from Rome's provinces, which increasingly spoke of Caesar's growing influence. It was during these tense years that my relationship with Caesar transformed from wary cooperation to outright hostility. He, ever the tactician, sought to expand his power, pushing the boundaries of the Republic to their breaking point. I, bound by a sense of duty to Rome, could not allow one man to wield such unchecked authority. The Senate, too, began to fear Caesar's ambitions, and I found myself drawn into their web of plots and counterplots. They looked to me, the great general who had once defended Rome against her enemies, to now protect her from herself. But even as the storm clouds gathered, I found solace in my family. My son, Sextus Pompeius Magnus Pius, had grown into a man of promise. His accomplishments on the battlefield brought me immense pride, and I hoped that he would carry on the Pompeian name with honor and distinction. Yet, I could not escape the feeling that my choices, my path, would soon engulf him in the very turmoil that consumed me. How could I protect him from the machinations of men like Caesar when I myself was caught in the same web? The tipping point came when Caesar, defying the Senate's orders, crossed the Rubicon with his legions, a clear declaration of war. The die was cast, and Rome descended into civil war, a conflict that would pit Roman against Roman, father against son. I, Pompey the Great, found myself at the helm of the Republic's forces, charged with defending the very institutions I had once sought to control. It was a bitter irony, to be sure, one that did not escape me even in the heat of battle. As we clashed across Italy and Greece, it became clear that this was not just a war of armies, but a battle for the soul of Rome. The Senate named me as their champion, and I rallied our forces with the fervor of a man fighting not just for power, but for survival. Yet, the shadow of Caesar loomed large, and despite our best efforts, his tactical brilliance and the loyalty of his legions proved overwhelming. The final blow came at the Battle of Pharsalus, where my forces were decisively defeated. In the aftermath, I fled to Egypt, hoping to find refuge among allies, but what awaited me was treachery and death. But before we descend into that dark chapter, let me leave you with this. The fall of Pompey was not just the fall of a man, but the fall of a republic, a way of life that had endured for centuries. And while I met my end on the shores of Pelusium, my legacy, both noble and flawed, would live on. In the next part of my tale, we will explore the final days of my life, the betrayal that awaited me in Egypt, and how the ambitions of men can turn allies into assassins. The hour grows late, but there is still much to tell. Stay with me, for the story of Pompey the Great is far from over. Betrayal, Rome's oldest tradition, and one that I would soon find myself intimately acquainted with. After my defeat at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC, I fled from Greece, a man once at the pinnacle of power, now a fugitive from the very city I had fought so fiercely to protect. The Senate was shattered, the legions scattered, and all that remained was the hope of sanctuary in Egypt, a land that had once been an ally to Rome. As my ship approached the shores of Pelusium, I could not help but reflect on the cruel twists of fate. Here I was, Pompey the Great, the man who had once commanded armies, conquered lands, and held the fate of the Republic in his hands, reduced to seeking refuge from a boy king, Ptolemy XIII. But I knew Egypt's importance, its resources, and its strategic position. Surely, I thought, I could rebuild from here, gather new forces, and return to challenge Caesar once more. The dream of Rome, of restoring the Republic, still burned within me, though its flame had dwindled to a flicker. The Egyptian court, however, had other plans. I was met not with the warmth of allies, but with the cold steel of betrayal. The boy king's advisors, fearing Caesar's wrath more than honoring past alliances, had decided to offer me as a sacrifice a gesture of loyalty to the rising power in Rome. And so, as I prepared to step onto Egyptian soil, unaware of the treachery that awaited, they struck. The memory of that moment is seared into my mind, as sharp as the blade that ended my life. I was still on the small boat, approaching the shore, when I saw them Lucius Septimius, a Roman who had once served under me, and a handful of Egyptians. There were no words exchanged, no grand speeches, only a brief moment of realization as Septimius drew his sword, and then pain, sudden and overwhelming. I fell, not on the battlefield where I had imagined my end, but in the shallow waters of a foreign land, my blood mingling with the sea. As I lay there, the life ebbing from my body, My thoughts were not of the wars I had fought or the power I had once held, but of my family, my son, Sextus Pompeius Magnus Pius. How would he fare in the world that I was leaving behind? Would he rise to greatness as I had, or would he too be consumed by the same forces that had destroyed me? My wife, Cornelia, would she find the strength to carry on without me, or would she be crushed by the weight of my legacy? Death, when it finally came, was not the roaring climax I had imagined, but a quiet, almost gentle descent into darkness. The pain faded, the sounds of the world grew distant, and all that remained was a profound sense of loss, not just for myself, but for Rome. For with my death, a part of the Republic died as well. I was the last defender of the old ways, and now, with me gone, Caesar's path was clear. But death is not the end, and as I drifted into the unknown, I could not help but wonder what legacy I would leave behind. Would I be remembered as Pompey the Great, the man who had once stood at the heart of Rome's power, or as Pompey the Fallen, the man who had lost everything in the pursuit of that power? Would history be kind to me, or would it judge me harshly for the choices I had made? In the next part, we will explore that legacy, how my name would be spoken in the years to come, and how my family, my son especially, would carry on the Pompeian name. For even in death, the story of Pompey the Great was far from over. My life had ended, but my impact on Rome and its people would echo through the ages. Stay with me, for in the shadows of history, Pompey's voice still speaks. The legacy I left behind is as complex as the man I was both hero and villain, conqueror and victim, and the story of how Rome remembers me is one that still has the power to surprise. They say a man's true legacy is not measured by the wealth he accumulates or the power he wields in life, but by the mark he leaves on history and the memories that endure after his death. As the waters of the Nile lapped at the shore where my life had ended, my legacy was already being forged in the fires of Rome's turbulent politics and the hearts of its people. What would they remember of Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus? Would they see a hero, a defender of the Republic, or would they only recall the man who lost it all? In the immediate aftermath of my death, the power vacuum in Rome grew more pronounced. Caesar, my once ally turned rival, returned to the city unopposed, his path cleared of obstacles. He was hailed as a hero by some, but there were those who remembered what we had fought for, those who still believed in the ideals of the Republic that I had sought to defend, even as I had sought power within its confines. My son, Sextus Pompeius Magnus Pius, would go on to inherit not just my name, but the burden of my legacy. Though young, he quickly became a central figure in the struggle against Caesar, and later, against the second triumvirate that emerged in the wake of Caesar's assassination. Sextus, with the blood of Pompey in his veins, waged a fierce war on the seas, earning himself the title of Pirate King as he sought to reclaim the power and honor that had been lost with my death. But history, like the tides, is ever-changing. My name would be invoked by both friends and foes, by those who admired my adherence to the old ways and those who saw my ambition as the Republic's undoing. My legacy was, in many ways, a mirror of Rome's own fate, glorious and tragic, noble and flawed. I was a man who reached for the heavens, but found himself ensnared by the very power he sought to control. In the years that followed, as Rome transitioned from republic to empire, the memory of Pompey the Great became a symbol of what had been lost. The Republic, once a bastion of shared governance and civic virtue, had crumbled under the weight of personal ambition and civil war. And though Caesar would go on to become the first emperor in all but name, my name would still echo through the corridors of history as a reminder of the Republic's last desperate stand. Monuments were erected in my honor, and my deeds were recorded by the historians of the age. But even these tributes could not capture the full scope of my life, the victories and defeats, the alliances and betrayals, the triumphs and tragedies. For my legacy was not just the battles I fought or the titles I held, It was the enduring spirit of Rome itself, the belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a man could rise to greatness and leave his mark on the world. As I look back from the afterlife, I see that my story is one of contrasts, a tale of greatness achieved and greatness lost, of ambition that both elevated and destroyed. And yet, despite it all, I cannot help but feel a certain pride, for in my life and in my death, I played a part in the grand drama that was Rome, a drama that would shape the course of history for centuries to come. But before we conclude this tale, there is one final chapter to tell. A chapter not of battles or politics, but of the places and memories that still bear my name. In the next part, we will journey to the sites where I lived and died, explore the remnants of the world I once knew, and discover how my legacy continues to live on, not just in the pages of history, but in the hearts and minds of those who seek to understand the past. And so, as we prepare to take this journey together, remember that the story of Pompey the Great is not just a tale of one man, but of an entire era, a time when the Republic stood on the brink, and when the choices of a few determined the fate of many. Stay with me, for there is still much to see and much to learn. As I look upon the world from behind the veil, I see that my legacy is not confined to dusty tomes or the memories of ancient men. It lives on in the very stones of Rome, in the relics of a time when the Republic stood proud and powerful, and in the hearts of those who seek to understand the past. My story, as grand and tumultuous as it was, is far from over. It continues in the places where I once walked, in the cities I once commanded, and in the history that still bears my name. For those who wish to follow in my footsteps, the journey begins in Rome itself. Here, among the ruins of the Forum, you can still find traces of the world I knew. The Curia Julia, where I once argued before the Senate, stands as a reminder of the Republic's final days. The Theatre of Pompey, though now buried beneath the modern city, was once a grand testament to my ambition, a place where art and politics intertwined, where Caesar himself met his end beneath the statue of the very man he defeated. Venture further afield, and you'll find the remnants of my campaigns, the places where I carved my name into the annals of history. In the east, the cities of Asia Minor still bear witness to my victories against Mithridates and the pirates who once terrorized the Mediterranean. In Spain, the battlefields where I fought Sertorius echo with the memories of a war that tested my resolve and honed my skills as a general. But perhaps the most poignant place to visit is the site of my final defeat, Pharsalus. Here, in the fields of Greece, the echoes of that fateful battle still linger, a silent testament to the day when the fortunes of Rome shifted forever. Stand on that ground, and you may feel the weight of history pressing down upon you, the knowledge that in that moment, the Republic as I knew it was lost. Yet, even in defeat, there is much to learn. The lessons of my life, the choices I made, both right and wrong, offer insights, not just into the past, but into the present and the future. In the coins that bear my likeness, such as this one, collected by those who seek a tangible connection to history, you can hold in your hand a piece of the world I once ruled. Each coin tells a story, not just of wealth and power, but of the hopes and dreams of a man who sought to shape the course of his nation's destiny. As you explore these places, as you hold these relics, remember that the Renaissance spirit is alive in all of us. It is the pursuit of knowledge, the desire to understand, the quest for truth that drives us to explore the past and apply its lessons to the present. Embracing the Renaissance spirit means looking beyond the surface of history, delving deep into the lives of those who came before us, and learning from their triumphs and their failures. So I invite you to continue this journey with me, to explore the world through the eyes of the great men and women who shaped it, to seek out the wisdom of the ages, and to carry that knowledge forward into the future. The Renaissance spirit, after all, is more than just a philosophy. It is a way of living, of growing, of thinking. It is the belief that in understanding our past, we can create a better future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my life, my reign, and my legacy. If you have enjoyed this exploration, I encourage you to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this story with others who may be inspired by the lessons of history. There is much more to discover, many more tales to tell, and I invite you to peruse the other videos on this channel, each one a gateway to a different time, a different place, a different story. And before you go, take a moment to reflect on what you have learned. Are you living the Renaissance spirit? Are you seeking knowledge, embracing truth, and striving to be a better steward of the world around you? Take the quiz next to see if you truly embody the Renaissance spirit, and let me know in the comments what you have gained from this journey. Your insights, your thoughts, and your ideas are the true measure of our shared exploration. Live the Renaissance spirit and carry the torch of knowledge forward, for the journey is far from over. The past is not dead. It is a living dialogue with the present and the future. Historia non est mortua, sed intellectus noster. History is not dead, only our understanding of it. Together, let us continue to seek that understanding, to learn from the past, and to shape the world of tomorrow. Vive Renaissance spiritus! Historia non est mortua, sed intellectus noster.